Hello everybody, Vic here with another video, and today we're talking how to fix Friday the 13th Part 2. I'm hyped up on my pumpkin spice coffee. Pumpkin's going out of season, but in my house, pumpkin spice is year-round. Alright, Friday the 13th Part 2. Let's go back to the early 1980s, of course. In 1980, the original Friday the 13th was all the rage. Halloween sort of kicked off the whole slasher boom, but Friday the 13th established a new sort of thing, whereas Halloween was suspenseful and all about the stalking and the cinematography and all the tricks of the trade. Friday the 13th was more direct, in-your-face, slasher mode, big body count, gore, in-your-face, killer with Jason. Well, I guess it was Mrs. Voorhees in the original Friday the 13th, but that took the slasher movies in a different direction. The rest of most of the 80s was pretty much just gore, not focused on characters, not focused on the stalking, more about the kill count, the body count, mindless victims, cliched characters. Everything we love about the Friday the 13th series, of course. Now, first thing, let's get one more sip of the pumpkin spice coffee before we jump into the video. I prefer Dunkin'. I know a lot of people prefer Starbucks. To each their own. So, 1980, Friday the 13th was a hit movie. And of course, they always got to go back to the well in the horror genre. So we're getting Friday the 13th Part 2, which, where do you go with the story? Because the first one is a revenge tale about a mom who was mad that her son was done wrong and is killing all the camp counselors in revenge. But that mother, Mrs. Voorhees, was killed at the end of Part 1, decapitated by one Alice. So where do we go from here? And the direction they would choose would change the entire trajectory of the franchise, because we're going with Jason. Who is Jason? Jason, of course, is the son of Mrs. Voorhees. If you remember the end of the original Friday the 13th, that amazing jump scare, one of the best jump scares in slasher film history, in my opinion, was Alice in the boat in the water. And Jason, young Jason, jumps out the water and grabs her. Now in the hospital, we find out maybe it was a figment of imagination. It was a dream sequence. We don't know, but she certainly thinks that she saw a boy in the water. So the writer of Friday the 13th Part 2, and I guess the creators behind the scenes said, hey, why not? Let's go there. Let's bring back Jason. And Tom Savini said, wait a minute, there's no damn Jason. There is no Jason. So Tom Savini apparently refused to come back to Friday the 13th Part 2 because he couldn't understand the concept of bringing back Jason. It makes no sense. Jason was dead. His mom's getting revenge. And of course, the canon explanation of Jason is kind of muddled and all over the place, but we'll get back to that a little bit later on. So anyways, we're going to Friday the 13th Part 2, 1981, bringing back Jason, who is now an adult, who's going to appear in this very opening scene, walking through a neighborhood. Now, of course, either Jason in this scene, when he's walking through the neighborhood in the street, either he has a sack on or he doesn't have a sack on, revealing a deformed, hideous-looking face underneath. Either way, where the hell is the neighborhood watch? Where is the nosy neighbors looking out the window and seeing sackhead Jason walking through the street? Someone's got to call the police or do something here, because this guy should not be just walking through the neighborhood. How in the world did Jason find Alice? Well, a lot of theories here. The novelization, though, points to something very specific. It says that Alice, doing something that never, ever works in horror movies, decides to go back to the scene of the trauma to face her demons to help get over it. She's going to go back to Crystal Lake some months later after the events of Part 1 to walk around Crystal Lake and take in the sights and sounds of the place where her friends got murdered and all this bad shit happened to her. Why she'd want to go back? What therapist recommended this to her? I don't know. This is not a good idea. Somewhere in her, reconnecting with the nostalgia of Crystal Lake, somewhere in that, Jason sees her and then actually is going to follow her from Crystal Lake back to her residence, this house she's renting here in suburbia, which is, I guess, a few miles down the road, somewhere in town, close to Crystal Lake. That's the explanation. That makes sense to me, because Jason on his own is not just finding Alice. I mean, what we know of Jason, this is totally against his characterization to leave Crystal Lake and come into suburbia. We look her up in the phone book, found her address. I mean, this is 1981. There's no internet for him to go to do a background check and find out where Alice is at. So he followed her back from Crystal Lake. She made a silly mistake of going there. And now, unfortunately, she's going to be killed in this opening scene. Now, let's talk about this. This video is all about how to fix Friday the 13th Part 2. But I want to say, first off the bat, this is a great movie. This is a great horror sequel. I think it's better than the original Friday the 13th. It's not always the case that Part 2 is better than Part 1. In fact, it's very rare that actually happens. But I think Steve Miner, who took over the directing from Sean Cunningham, is a better director than Sean Cunningham, does a better job. I like the characters more. I like the final girl more. Sackhead Jason to me is a better killer than the mysterious Mrs. Voorhees who shows up only in the last 5 minutes with no hints or clues all throughout Friday the 13th, even suggesting who the whodunit killer might be in Friday the 13th. From the very beginning, we established Jason as the killer here, so it makes the movie smooth a little bit flow, or makes the movie flow a little bit smoother for me than the original Friday the 13th. But all that said, there's some minor things I feel like we can criticize here and say maybe these would make the movie, in my opinion, a little bit better. And of course, if you like the video, hit the thumbs up, the like button, subscribe if you're not, and leave in the comments, let me know what you would do to improve Friday the 13th Part 2. All right, let's get back to this opening scene. Jason has tracked down Alice, and he's going to kill her. I like this opening scene a lot. I think it's a great, one of the best openings in the franchise. It's suspenseful. It's scary. It takes its time, which is good and bad. We'll get to that in a second, but it is a worthy death for a returning protagonist. A lot of people hate the idea of bringing someone back just to kill them in the opening scene of the next movie. The most horrible example of this is probably Hostel 2, which was very upsetting to see that character get killed in the very opening the way he did. But you've seen it all the time. You've seen, like, for example, Dream Master, they killed off the Dream Warriors in the first 20 minutes. But this is kind of like the establishing the standard for that. Bringing back someone just to kill them. Was it the right decision? Here's why it's the right decision. First of all, in my opinion, Alice is a very overrated final girl. I know people hype up Alice because she's there in the first one. You know, she chops off Mrs. Voorhees' head. She seems like a great final girl, but to me, she's not on that upper tier. She's not there with your Nancys or your Lauries or your Sydneys. I don't put Alice in that class. I'm sorry, she doesn't get that much screen time in the first one. There's not a lot of character development, and I just don't have an emotional connection to Alice, so I'm cool with her getting killed there. Also, you're bringing back Jason. You got to up the stakes and really establish him as a badass threat. And what better way to do that than kill off the final girl who killed his mom very easily, or actually with a struggle, killed his mom in the first one. Having Jason dispose of her in the first 10 minutes establishes an absolute badass Jason. Now, would the movie be better if Alice came back for a bigger role, stretched out throughout the movie, and then maybe Jason kills her or doesn't kill her, but just her as the final girl brought back in a bigger role? She's getting the Halloween Resurrection Laurie Strode treatment here. Is it better if she is in the entire movie? Because, I mean, Laurie Strode and Halloween Resurrection, that would have been a much better movie if they didn't kill off Laurie in the opening 10 minutes and just kept her throughout the movie. But the reason why it works here and doesn't work in Halloween Resurrection is because Halloween Resurrection had a weak main character. Sarah in Halloween Resurrection was a terrible main character. So throughout the movie, you're actually, just, as an audience, you're begging to bring back Laurie Strode because you have a terrible replacement. It's not the case here in Friday the 13th Part 2. Alice can die to make room for Ginny because Ginny's a better main character than Alice. So replacing Alice with Ginny, you know, after spending 10 minutes with you, you're like Alice who? I mean, I barely remember Alice. This is the final girl we deserve. You know, sassy, has a great personality, fun character. Ginny makes us not miss Alice. So because Alice is not a memorable character, in my opinion, because we need to establish Jason as an absolute badass, I'm perfectly fine with killing her in the first 10 minutes. But let's talk about the execution. First thing we got to do is we got to get rid of the recap. So this movie is going to spend the first 6 minutes recapping the events of the original Friday the 13th. I mean, I know that there was no internet back then, so they didn't have a sense of, you couldn't go on YouTube and just watch the first, scenes from the first one and online communities, things like that. There was maybe no sense of, hey, does the audience know about the first one as much as, do we need to really worry about the idea of establishing what happened in the first one for a new audience in the second one? But man, 6 minutes for a recap. This entire movie is an hour and 26 minutes. So 6 minutes for a recap just slows down this opening to a complete drag. They use a storytelling device to do the recap, which is Alice is dreaming of the events of the first one. And I guess that's a little bit better. It's less lazy than just like doing a flat out recap without any storytelling device explaining it. But I think that if you watch the original Friday the 13th and then you turn on part 2 immediately afterwards, you basically just want to fast forward to this first 6 minutes. You know what happened. You don't need the recap. There's no new information here. Alice wakes up finally from her dream, 6 minutes of the movie, and we finally start with new scenes. Now, everything else about the scene is done very well. Again, it's not rushed. It's a proper death scene for a big character. When Alice finds Mrs. Voorhees' head in the fridge and then Jason puts the ice pick in her head, perfect. But I would just cut to the white screen right there. I don't need Jason taking the pot off the stove. That's just goofy to me. It's just goofy that you have the loud boiling pot noise, and then Jason's like, "Ah, this damn noise! I gotta get rid of this noise." I mean, it's an extra 5 seconds that's not needed there. So just ice pick in the head, cut straight to the next scene. Now this opening scene runs about 10 minutes long, with 6 minutes of it being a recap, which I guess is okay. But the problem is, right after this scene ends, we're cutting to a 2 minute opening credits sequence. The score playing. We're getting, who's the photographer, director, all the cast, everything like that. And after the 6 minute recap and then another 4 minutes establishing the kill of Alice, cutting to a 2 minute opening credit sequence now, again, just slows the movie down to a halt. So I'm getting rid of this opening credit sequence. Just play the credits in the background while you start the movie. Because, I mean, we're taking a long time to get established here. And again, this is just fast forwarded on every single rewatch of the movie. We fast forward the opening credits. So it's a waste of time here. Finally, after that, now 12 minutes into, we're establishing our new characters. And there's a big problem here as well, because we spend the next 7 minutes with the characters Jeff, Sandra, Ted, finally then Paul. These are characters that all throughout the movie I just do not care about. Paul, will say, is a pretty good character, but in terms of Jeff, Sandra, and Ted, meh, could do without them. The real problem here is that our main character, Ginny, doesn't show up into the movie until 20 minutes in. We're 20 minutes into, mind you, an hour and 26-minute movie. We're establishing Ginny here 20 minutes in. So we have to fix this, and the way to do it is, after the opening credits, we're not going to have Ted playing a joke, a prank on Sandra and Jeff. We're going to cut to Ginny instead, establish her character. Those extra 8 minutes from minutes 12 to 20 we're spending with Ginny. Just follow her driving to the lake, have her stop at a gas station, talk with somebody. I don't know, but just spend the time with her, because this movie needs more Ginny. I mean, again, she's in the movie for essentially an hour, because she comes in at 20 minutes, and the movie's an hour and 26 minutes long. So we need more time with Ginny, less time with the characters we don't care about, which is Jeff, Sandra, and Ted. As a matter of fact, I might get rid of those three characters altogether, because I don't see their utility or value. I don't want to waste any scenes with characters we don't care about. I know that this is Friday the 13th Part 2, so we need like a high body count, but I may get rid of Jeff and Sandra altogether, to be honest, because I don't really feel any connection to those characters. I think that there's 4 characters here that I think are fantastic, and that is Ginny, Paul, Vicky, and Mark. So take all the screen time you're giving to Jeff, Sandra, and Ted, and give that to, again, give some more scenes to the budding relationship of Vicky and Mark. They have a cute, sweet thing going on there. And then, of course, more time establishing Ginny and Paul, what their relationship is. Give those four characters all the screen time, and then the whole end sequence means a lot more. We need more Ginny, though, again. If you're taking so long with the opening sequence, recaps, opening credits, killing off Alice, you have to reestablish Ginny earlier on, and you have to give her more screen time. Because of the length of the movie and the recap, she has the least amount of screen time, probably of any final girl in the franchise. Okay, let's move on. One of the great characters from the original is Crazy Ralph. He's here back in Part 2, and they make one mistake that we need to recorrect. We need to fix this one specific thing, and that is you do not kill off Crazy Ralph in Part 2. Crazy Ralph is a character that should be brought back in every sequel, always giving the warning to those dumb teenagers that come to Crystal Lake, because they're not getting the memo that this place is a place you don't go to party for the weekend. I mean, you get all the way to Friday the 13th Part 7, these dumb teens are still showing up for a weekend of fun, a weekend of getting massacred, so we need Crazy Ralph. And look, think about this. They know the value of a Crazy Ralph character, because in Part 3, they have a guy playing the same role. The guy that's like, you have been warned. And then think about the deckhand in Jason Takes Manhattan. That's, again, just a fill-in for Crazy Ralph. So the character has value. You don't kill off Crazy Ralph. He has to be the warning person, the person who's always warning about the cursed Crystal Lake all throughout the series, keeping Crazy Ralph alive, period. Okay. I talked about not really caring about Jeff, Sandra, and Ted. And one thing I have to mention about Ted, the luckiest mofo in the world, because he leaves with most of the counselors to go to the little diner thing, and he stays the night there, it seems, doesn't come back to the camp. I don't like that there's no payoff with Ted. He's a practical joker, a prankster. He doesn't get a death scene. Why do we spend time with this character if he's not going to show up back in the movie? I don't understand in the writing of the script where they have the character of Ted and don't bring him back for some kind of prankster comeuppance. I mean, we see what happened to Shelley in Friday the 13th Part 3, right? The prankster Boy Who Cries Wolf gets his comeuppance from the killer. Wasted opportunity not to kill Ted here. I mean, I don't like the character in the first place, but if you're gonna have him doing jokes and being, goofy Ted, then bring him back at the camp. Why isn't he not getting a death scene here? I don't understand. So we have to either eliminate Ted, or if he's staying in the movie in this capacity, or bring him back at the camp and have him get killed by Sackhead Jason. Speaking of characters, let's talk about Jason for a moment. Is there anything off about the presentation of Jason here? I don't think so. I think this is perfectly fine. Would the character have become as iconic if you stuck with Sackhead Jason? Absolutely not. You definitely have to have the mask, but it came in at the right time, I think, in part 3. Sackhead Jason is fine, fantastic. I love his presentation. I love getting the background of seeing his shack in the woods. Stupid cop who is coming to the shack, Jason's shack in the woods, but's already exhausted himself with a full-blown chase scene. What are you doing, man? Call for backup at that point. You can barely even move. You can barely walk. You're breathing hard. Why are you approaching some random, crazy-looking shack in the woods? I mean, is your job that important? Is this investigation that serious? Go call backup. You might still be alive today, but I like Sackhead Jason. I like, actually, Jason unmasked at the end. Maybe he has too much hair. So maybe go back to the bald-headed Jason look. But I guess the crazy hair sort of works in a way. Jason's backstory, how it's explained. You have Ginny at the diner basically floating an idea that I think we're supposed to take as canon. The idea that maybe Jason didn't die. Maybe he floated onto the other side of the river and was raised by wolves. Jason's backstory in canon is so all over the place in the franchise. Did he drown? Did he not drown? Is he a damn deadite? Is he not a damn deadite? Is the Crystal Lake his actual resting place that Tommy Jarvis thinks so in part 6 and returned to his original resting place? And part 8, they're saying, well, did he drown? Did he not drown? There's a lot of, obviously, I actually have a video called Did Jason Drown in the archives. If you want to get more into his backstory, check that out. But I think for this movie, they do a good enough job explaining Jason. You really don't have to have seen the first movie. I mean, like I said, they recap the damn first movie in the first 6 minutes. I think it's a good interpretation, representation of Jason, so I'm cool with that. Okay, let's talk about some of the death scenes. The cop's death again. Stupid that he went to the shack, but he did, and Jason kills him, and that's at that point, it actually probably is trespassing, so I think maybe Jason wouldn't be charged for that. But let's talk about one death that irked me, and that's Vicky's death. Vicky's death annoys me specifically because she gets stabbed in the leg, and I understand that. She backs up against the wall. But man, that slow motion shot of Jason coming towards her with a knife, I don't like it because I think it goes against human nature. I don't think you can say that shock value is that maybe she's shocked so she can't move, but survival instinct is a thing also, and I clocked it. It's 21 seconds that Jason is walking slowly towards her. 21 seconds. Watch the movie and count that. From the time Jason turns to her, raises the knife, and walks towards her, she has 21 seconds to move from her position, and she's next to a door. She can walk out the door, which is right next to her. The door's not closed behind her. It's not locked. It's right next to her. I don't believe any human is going to sit there and watch for 21 seconds as someone with a knife approaches her. And in terms of her leg being damaged, she doesn't try to move on it. How does she know? She's not even like moving her leg. She's just standing and still in a position. I think that it's sort of a ridiculous death scene, to be honest. I would just have Jason, if you're going to do that scene, then have Jason speed up a little bit. Don't have it be 21 seconds. Give some respect to the character and intelligence, survival instincts of having it be a quick, he walks up to her and stabs her. But man, 21 seconds of slow motion, guy with a knife walking towards you and just sit there and cry until he stabs you. I didn't like that death scene. Mark's death scene. Should Mark have survived? This death scene shocked the hell out of me because it's so over the top. Not only does he get stabbed, but then you got to show the wheelchair going back downwards down the stairs. I mean, it's so over the top, but it is a memorable death scene, so you have to keep that there for sure. Okay, Paul. Paul at the end. Did Paul actually die? I would say let's kill the ambiguity of that and just have it established at the end. Is Paul dead or not? Because we're left as a franchise, as fans, just asking this question. Where's Paul? Did Paul die? We've been asking for years. You have to get the opinion of the writer to see what he says. He says that, hey, his intention was that Paul was dead. So we have to go with that, I guess. But I would go ahead and make it more clear because you're not bringing back the characters. So if you're not bringing back the characters, there's no closure here. So they're not going to be back the sequel. So just establish, is Paul dead? Is Paul not dead? I think that's pretty much all I got in terms of how to fix Friday the 13th Part 2. Overall, I'm okay with the execution of everything. I like the directing by Steve Miner. The main characters, again, Ginny, Paul, Vicky, Mark, I think they're solid. But some minor changes I'd make to make the movie a little bit better, in my opinion. But overall, it's a great sequel. It's in the top 5 movies in the franchise for me. And in the comments, let me know what you would do to fix Friday the 13th Part 2, if anything. And until next time, you guys take care.